Give me the heads up when it, oh, there we go. All right, excellent. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Ginny, if you could start with roll, that would be great.
Sure. Bush,
Here.
Greenlee,
Here.
Harris,
Here.
Hill,
Here.
Kyers,
Here.
Longstreet,
Here.
McCaffrey,
Here.
Reichart, and he is not here now, but he will be here shortly. Rice
Here.
and Sachs.
Here.
All right, got everybody. Almost. As soon as Field gets here, we'll have everybody. So first, I wanted to extend a warm welcome to a new face we have in our room here today, and that's Nick Smith, who is the Coordinator of Visitor and Business Services. Did I get that right? All right, great. I just asked if Nick would give us a little intro and background on where he comes from and what he'll be doing.
Yeah, thank you. So Nick Smith, Coordinator of Visitor and Business Services. I'm excited to be part of the Ottawa County Parks team. Previous to this, I was the Parks Director for Newaygo County for 8.5 years. Self-funded organization. Biggest project we just finished was the Dragon Trail. A lot of you have probably heard of that. Prior to that, I worked with Jason at Metro Parks of Butler County, so excited to work with him again. Also worked at the city, township, and federal levels as well. So started my parks career in 2007 as a seasonal park worker in college and got my degree in parks administration, and it's been a great ride ever since. So excited to be part of the team. Working on the campground right now, so
Yeah.
hope to have some news at the before the next meeting for you.
Great.
Folks. But yeah, happy to answer any questions you may have.
And what county did you come from?
Newaygo County.
Just
Yeah.
He worked with my colleague up there because he's on the Parks and Rec Commission up
Yep.
there. So
Oh,
Mr.
okay,
Twang,
nice.
Mr. Twang is a good guy.
Very cool. Nice, nice. Thanks and welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
Anyone
Welcome.
have any questions specifically for Nick? Put him on the spot here on his first meeting. All right, we will just keep rolling then. Let's see, we don't have any additions or deletions to the agenda. Well, I guess we do have the director's report that Jason handed out. Does everybody have a paper copy? And he also emailed that out as well. So we'll be getting to that here under staff reports. All right, we will keep rolling with the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, the February 19th regular meeting. Hopefully everybody saw the minutes and had a chance to review those. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lucas.
Word.
Martin, great. Thank you. All right. Any questions, edits? All right. I think just, we might want to double check. I think the finance and policy met on February 11th. It was a date change, but I think the minutes might still say the 12th. And they're but super minor. But.
Okay, I'll check it.
Great. All right, we'll go ahead and put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, minutes are approved. Well, we don't have any communications this month, and we'll move on to our first public comment. I don't see anyone in the audience who might be wishing to make public comment, but if you are online and you wish to submit written public comment to us at any time, you'll see the email address in the description for the YouTube video there, and you can send that to the attention of the Parks Commission, and we'll take a look at it and discuss at the next meeting. All right, so we will keep rolling with staff reports and start with Jason's, the director's report.
Thank you. So so last month I did a few revisions, and then this month I stole some of the graphics out of the annual report, and Riley is going to be helping us format staff reports moving forward, but trying to implement the strategic planning initiatives and reporting. So just a few highlights. We talked about this in our finance committee meeting. We're working on a self-service kayak rental. So it'll be a locker system that's all self-service, and you'll be able to utilize a credit card. And initially the RFP will solicit proposals that will support kayak rental, but we think that it could provide paddle boards, potentially, beach chairs, or even be used for vending opportunities such as like firewood at the campground, if we think it would work. So I included the initial tentative schedule in there, so we would be um, tentatively proposing a contract to the Parks Commission in May. So the MOU that the Parks Commission approved in January, that continues to move along. It's scheduled, looks like April for the Grand Haven City Council meeting for approval. This past month, there was a Consumers Energy, J.H. Campbell Decommissioning Stakeholders Meeting. Phil attended as a board rep, and in the packet, the materials that I sent out just a little bit ago to you all in the email, I included the slideshow with that. There are a few things worth noting. They're still moving forward, as far as we know, with going dark in May of 25, with a flag lowering ceremony then in June. The next week, I think it is, the township with their consultant is reviewing the master plan update proposal that they have. So it'll incorporate those 2,400 acres or so. And there's actually some slides in that slideshow that have the preliminary draft of that. So that doesn't necessarily change the zoning as much as provides an overlay then that their township zoning committee can use as a reference moving forward. So there's a whole process. This is the first step for them to finalize that. So as we already did, we introduced Nick. So this is, he's been busy, right? Trying to see all the sites and get to the facilities and meet staff. And as he said, his biggest focus right now will be getting the campground up and running. Our goal is to have it operational in April. So with a dedication in May, we'll be looking at doing some trial runs on stays. So we'll connect with Carly and solicit volunteers. We'll have a whole, assessment and a checklist, and we'll ask for some folks to come out and test it out, take showers, spend the night if you want to, bring a tent, pop up and stay in one of the tent sites and just, test it. And that will allow staff to have some trial runs at cleaning, checking people in, what's working, what do we need to fix before we go live.
Nice.
So we'll make sure we include all of you when that email goes out. So last week we had an all-staff meeting. It was pretty exciting. We canceled for several reasons. We canceled the one we normally do in December. So it was the first one we had in like 6 months. And I think we had like 6 or 7 new employees there who'd started since then. So it was really fun to get together. We kicked off our budgeting process, did some updates, and then roundtable, but it was really just good to connect with all of our team. We'll do another one sometime in summertime, normally in July, and do a cookout. Last week, the Parks Foundation did their annual strategic planning meeting. They met at Grand Ravines. It was several hours. They had a facilitator come in and help with that. Did an amazing job. It was Jason who helped with our strategic planning process. So really just a great facilitator. And then they work on short and long-term goals and how to align with the Parks Commission. There was also, I didn't note it on the report, but March 9th, the foundation had their puzzle event. So and as I mentioned earlier, we're working on updates to the staff reports to align it better with the strategic report or the strategic plan. So the goal is to have a draft of that next month. And then I think Kelly has, or somebody has the plaque.
Yeah, we were passing it around.
Yeah, so
Over here.
Yeah,
we
Joe hold it
announced
up
it.
there.
I was waiting for Field.
Oh, yeah.
So we've known about it for a few months, but last month or just a couple weeks ago, some of us went to Traverse City, and one of the things we were able to do was receive the design award for Ottawa Sands. So it's exciting. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have a tribute wall? Where do we put stuff like that?
Well, I think we'll put that in the Welcome Center
Yeah,
at
okay.
Ottawa
Be a
Sands.
good spot for that.
Nice.
I have a question. If the first point on the kayak rental, it said, for designated parks? I know it talked about at Hemlock Crossing for the kayak locker. Is that kind of the?
So that's
main
one of the
starting
things
point?
we'll work through. We've tentatively identified, so Ottawa Sands, Hemlock Crossing, where else, Jason, were we? We've talked about, at the marina, at Historic Ottawa Beach
Oh, okay.
also. So we have the we include, in the proposal, our visitation numbers, but, if we hit all of those, we hit each of the greenways. So,
Grand River Park was one of the other locations we talked about.
Oh,
because
okay.
it's so busy. And it's close to university students too.
Sure.
so.
Great, thanks.
Anyone else? All right, thanks, Jason. We'll keep going with the park operations report. Jason Berger.
All right, well, we started the month renting skis at Pigeon Creek and being super busy with that, and we ended the month with almost no snow. We had about half the month that we were open at Pigeon Creek, and we finally hit that period of the winter when we can get a few things done, which is when we're not doing snow removal and we're not yet getting employees hired for summer. It's a very, very small window, but that's why you see we did a lot of painting projects. We replaced doors. There's a backsplash project. We get to all those little things that people think we do all winter when we really have to do it all in like 2 weeks because we don't have all winter. So a lot of that going on. I did, as Jason mentioned, make it to the M Parks conference in Traverse City this year again. Had a good conference out there, lots of good educational sessions, and of course we got our awards. So that was definitely a worthwhile time. And then other than that, we had our new operations secretary that started this month, and so she's in her second week now. So we'll she's definitely has a lot to learn, and it's going to take a while for anybody to get in all the different systems that we work with and familiarize themselves. But she seems to be doing really, really well. So, any questions? I'd be glad to answer them.
Go ahead.
This is just an off-the-wall question, nothing intended by it. So 52 down or dead trees, and I'm supposing Phil didn't report them all. Is that a lot? Is that,
We average about one a day, so we average
Okay.
350 to 400 a year.
okay,
So that we have to cut out. Now that doesn't happen as one a day. That happens often as 150 in 1 month and 25 in the next month, and
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, it ends up to about one a day is average. So that wouldn't be unusual at all.
is that people just calling you and saying, hey, there's one over the trail, or?
Some
might
of them are
be one-
calls. Most of them are that we observe and we take care of. It is one of the key functions that our volunteer park monitors do. They do walk the trails and point those things out to us.
Okay.
And Carly has been working to formalize the and kind of revamp the park monitor program to be a little more structured, so that we can get that communication between that volunteer and that particular park supervisor that they're working for in a form that works for both parties.
Cool.
So they're amazing for those areas, like in the northern parts of North Ottawa Dunes that Jeremy might get to 4 times a year, maybe if that. But a volunteer that hikes the trails every day is going to see that maybe twice a week.
And then my other question was about snow removal, because has it been cost effective to have us do our own in the north compared to what?
Cost effective, yes. But it definitely has been very time consuming for them, and they've had less time to do projects this winter than they're used to. But the contractors that we've had in the north in years past have not been satisfactory. So to them, it's much better with this because they have quality control that we didn't have before. So it's well worth it.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Good. Anything else? Jason? All right, thanks, Jason. Kurt is he out until April 1st? I got his out of office and I was like,
Out
hopefully
on
he's doing something
vacation for 2
fun.
weeks, so, yes.
He's across the pond.
But we're happy. There's, and I know Aaron can hop in here, just a few, the
Yeah.
Stearns Bridge, the Stearns segment connector. So his report says they were waiting for the contractor to get working, but I know that they were out, I think, working on that a week or so ago. So
They were out there the other day because I went across it and there were contractors
Really?
on it. Yeah.
Mhm.
the trail's been cleaned and cleared, so it's, 95 or more % done at this point. And then, Aaron's, this is grant season, so, well,
Yeah, you want to highlight some things, Aaron?
Yeah, I guess, actually there's breaking grants that we're working on. So, tomorrow we'll be submitting a concept paper to the Michigan Health Endowment for, proposing an update to the non-rotaries pathway plan for Ottawa County. So we're looking at, sorry, the camera. It's like, wow.
Oh, you're doing that, Jessica?
But yeah, it's like, it's not automated. Anyway,
If you're on YouTube, take your drama
so,
beam. Sorry. No, it's
so
okay.
that came, Jason can talk more, I guess, about his conversation with the representatives of the Michigan Health Endowment and M Parks, but they have a new opportunity where they do design and planning funding without a match. So this is a concept paper. We'd get feedback, and if we get, if it's well, we'd submit in May. And then with our coastal resiliency work at Ottawa Sands and Harbor Island, we've been working with GEI, and Brian at GEI has a contact with the USGS, and they have some funding that they're very interested in us submitting a grant by March 31st for doing restoration, wetlands creation and more at Ottawa Sands. So that's pretty far along in engineering. Kurt mentioned it in the planning report. The current plan is about 10 acres that's subject to change of wetlands, which is going to be somewhere between $1 and $2 million. We don't have cost estimates yet, but the they have $200,000, and we do some portion of that with some volunteer match and staff match to plant the plantings post the grading and everything. So we meet with them next week, potentially, the federal, and they seem positive despite everything that they want us to apply. And that, for them, I guess the sky isn't falling. So and then of course we have our trust fund grants, but so it's a busy grant time. But if there's any questions about those, we would usually do, Jason, a motion to do those grants. So I don't know how, maybe we'll do it.
Well,
We'll
we
do
have the-
ratify it next month.
Well, the health and wellness.
That's just a concept paper right
The
now.
paper, so we'll formalize an approval process either before we do the full submittal or, and then the other one before.
Yeah,
If there's a contract or
there's no resolution, or anything, but
not required
that-
resolution.
yeah, that one's pretty far along. So yeah,
But one of those is due March 31st,
yes, the wetland grant.
USGS one,
Yep,
but we don't need anything.
we
A
don't.
formal motion or resolution ahead of
Okay.
time. So once we either receive word or if they have a formal grant contract, we'll run that through the.
And that would be, funding would be, if it all went well, funding would be available in the fall. So
Oh,
that's
wow,
pretty
that's
fast
fast.
turnaround.
We can match it with,
That's fast.
with staff and.
Yeah, no match required, but Brian encouraged a match, and we were willing to
Yeah.
do that.
Makes
So.
sense.
And the health fund, it's, they'll support planning, so the, specifically for like trail connectivity. So with the thought of looking at into the future and looking at where we want to make connections between our regional trails, maybe updating the non-motorized plan, Paul. So, yeah, that's what
Well, that's the proposal.
yeah.
DSI staff's working with you on that?
That I've had some conversations about trail stuff, but no, nothing about like,
So we're going to try to get funding.
You're-
though,
you-
to facilitate.
We would probably get some commitments before we apply. So we'd have a more formal, right now it's just with doing 4 grants at once and strategic planning. I haven't had time to reach out, but there would be time between when the actual application's submitted to talk, connect with you and formalize our idea. Right now, the idea is, we have 3 MPO plans that have been recently or are being updated that cover most of the county. So we kind of cover those gaps. And I think there's an opportunity to do a new, and they want innovation and look at grading our current routes according to the level of traffic stress, which is, what are barriers to people using the trails we have. And that's one big barrier. So.
Good.
All right.
Thanks,
Judge grant
Aaron.
season, right?
Any questions for Aaron on any of that? Good stuff. All right, thank you. All right, the community engagement report, Jess?
We're just gonna, here we go. Okay. There's a new camera situation up here, if everyone couldn't tell. I got a few text
Don't do
messages.
that again.
Sorry about making everyone dizzy. No. No one else is allowed to touch it. It's very finicky. All right. Sorry. Thank you. So I've got a handful of stuff in here that I want to shout out. Just as a reminder, I will also include the Friends report in here every month. So they have a fair amount of things going on and some exciting funding, which is great. I also want to call out some of our partnerships, just because we have a handful of new ones. We will be hosting a Vernal Pool Patrol in-person training in April, which is we're really excited about. There's a couple of online trainings and starting to grow that program. Yes, and a few people in here will be part of that. John Ball Zoo reached out to us to participate in the City Nature Challenge, which is a weekend at the end of April. So if you're out and about, please download iNaturalist, and you don't have to do anything other than download iNaturalist and take pictures and upload the information. If you are in any one of the 4 participating counties, it will automatically be organized into that challenge. So it's super easy, which is great because some of those sometimes can be a little bit tricky. They are in competition with the Detroit Zoo. So, we've got to help them out a little bit there.
Question.
Yep.
If you download that, it will explain what you're supposed to be taking pictures of or it's just anything?
Anything alive.
Wow.
And
Plants.
it's anywhere?
It's like a regional
bugs,
bio blitz.
Yep. Plants, bugs.
So it's really, I mean, it's pretty incredible. You can just
mushrooms.
so last weekend there was something green at Upper Mac, and it was
Poison hemlock.
poison hemlock, the one green thing. So, yeah.
You grab it and pull it into the camera?
That's the time to treat it, though. That's what, yeah.
So the pictures I'm taking to document my Visit Every Parks challenge progress could just be uploaded into that thing?
Yeah.
It's a tree
Yep.
or
Tree, flower, bug,
bird,
mushroom,
whatever?
It saves them, doesn't it? Does it
wildlife.
log 'em?
Yep.
Yeah,
It'll
it
save onto your
does.
camera roll. So
Interesting.
make sure you have enough space, on your phone, which is fun. Fun
Okay.
thing that I do sometimes where I fill it up.
All right.
Yeah, and I know Neely is going to we have a few public events that we'll be hosting to help collect data, and there'll be more information at those events, so we can give folks better instructions than what I just gave you just now. And I know Neely is going to host a special Park Stewards Work Day to do some of the vernal ponds, so they should get some really cool, a variety of data. So, very exciting.
You get a jelly pod of salamanders.
Yeah, that's
Eggs.
Eggs.
the scientific name too, right there. So.
It's in the
And
little-
the tiny bug table.
Yes, love the tiny bug table. We're getting ready for a really busy spring at the Nature Center and just with our programming in general. We are really excited about our spring break camp. It's full at 40 kids. We're also doing a summer-long, all-day, it's 11-week summer camp. So it's the first time we have done anything like that before. It is licensed to the state of Michigan. Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. So working on starting to do hiring for that and getting those filled up. So if you know anyone with school-aged children and that does not have summer care, which is a pretty common issue in our area that maybe lives near Grand River Park or Hager Park, let them know that we've got really fun outdoor camp going.
So,
all
so is
summer
that
long.
every day?
Every day? Yep.
Every day for 11 weeks?
11 weeks. So the only exception would be 4th of July.
Yeah.
Or not.
Okay.
We don't have camp that day. Yep. Let's see. I would say if you have any other questions, let me know. But that might be, probably leave it at that. You're hearing from me a lot this meeting, so.
Just the summer camp, how many kids do they handle at one time?
So each location, so we've got it split up. Our older kids will be at Grand River Park and our younger kids will be at Hager Park. And we can have 40 kids at each location for each week of camp.
Okay, thanks. Wow, that's a bunch.
Anyone else for Jess? All right, I had a super quick question. Are we, the traffic's car count, will that be replaced at some point by like the Placer AI data? Or are we just gonna keep reporting on that for consistency?
I wouldn't mind replacing it. It doesn't like upload results very quickly, so you can see that's pretty far out of date. Once we kind of have a better idea of what Placer data we will be reporting on, I think that would be a
Okay.
good replacement. So
Good.
yeah, that counter is like an actual physical
Mhm.
thing that sticks onto the gate. So a little bit different.
Great. All right, we'll keep going then with the Natural Resources Management Report. Neely, we've missed you a couple months, so you can fill us
I
in on
know,
everything
there-
that's going on.
It was we always say that winter is our slow time, but it hasn't been that way. So, I think that the couple times that I was gone were for legitimate work reasons, I promise. But I think Jason said I have to come to every commission meeting for the rest of the year. So here I am. Anyway, I don't have a ton to add. Looking at my report, it looks like winter here and it certainly doesn't look like that out there today.
It will tomorrow.
Thanks, Linda. So we've been kind of wrapping up our winter stuff. So a lot of woody invasive removal, non-native pine removal. The crew is still working on hemlock woolly, hemlock woolly adelgid survey, and then doing some seeding with volunteers as well. So kind of starting to wrap that up and moving on to spring things. Like I said, the winter just flew by really quickly. So we were able to complete some of our winter projects, but some of my organization things kind of fell off the bottom of the to-do list. Obviously working a lot on strategic planning with Erin, who's been extremely helpful. And Tyler and I were able to go up to the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy for a little field trip for some inspiration for our strategic plan. So that was a productive trip. The entire crew, for the most part, along with Tyler and I, excuse me, were also able to attend a couple prescribed fire trainings and meetings. So we've been working a lot on trying to build a more robust prescribed burn program. So I think most of you probably know that we try to do at least 1 or 2 fires every year. A lot of those have been contracted out in the past. And I think that moving forward, we will continue to contract out some of our more complex or larger burns, but we're hoping to build the capacity to do more of the smaller ones and less time consuming fires in-house. So we're really excited about that and looking at burning a couple properties this spring and then one in the fall. So we're doing a little bit of prescribed fire planning actually tomorrow. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then like Jessica said, looking at vernal pool monitoring coming up. So we've been finding, I think, a lot of areas where community engagement and NRM kind of intersect. I'm trying not to throw too many things at Jessica, but I feel like whenever we come up with ideas, like they're really good natural resource management related ideas, but like some of the work falls on community engagement. So I'm trying not to do that too much. But I think there's been some really good collaboration there and we are trying to encourage that a little bit more. between departments. Other than that, I'm thinking about February. Oh, this is what I wanted to mention. February was National Invasive Species Awareness, or the last week of February was National Invasive Species Awareness Week. So we took the opportunity to put a lot of information out there about invasive species on the socials. If anyone got a chance to see it, we kind of highlighted some different species that are really common in our parks. And then I actually, in preparation for a presentation, tried to figure out how many different invasive species we have in the parks, and I think we're at about 50 that we map and work with, and we treat almost all of those. So a lot of them are few in number, but 50 different invasive species. So obviously there's a lot of work to do there. It keeps our staff pretty busy. And then the last thing I'll mention, I think, is that we do have a new full-time NRM staff person starting at the end of this month. So Bree Jasinski is coming to us from Mason Lake Conservation District, where she's been the HWA coordinator for the last couple of years. So Hemlock Woolly Adelgid, she led a task force up there working on dealing with Hemlock Woolly Adelgid. She's also done various types of work around the country, so we're really excited about that. And her position will be primarily field-based, so doing a lot of the same work that the stewardship technicians are doing, only she will do it year-round. So hopefully that'll really build our capacity. And I think that was probably the last thing that I want to mention, unless anyone has any questions.
Anything for Neely?
Thanks for
Alright.
the work you're doing.
Yeah,
Thanks, Joe.
absolutely. I got to give you guys a shout out because you never appreciate how hard park staff works until you try to do that same task yourself. So like 2 weeks ago, I was up trying to map all the hemlocks we have on our property up north. And where do hemlocks grow? They grow on the slopes.
Mhm.
So you're like going up and down and you're rolling your ankles and it goes so much slower. So when I look at the thousands of trees you guys have marked and treated and stuff, it's just,
I appreciate that. I kind
You
of,
guys
and
are
I'm not out in the
fantastic,
field
so.
nearly as much as I used to be, obviously, but I kind of miss the exercise. But there are days where I'm like, oh, I'm glad I'm
It's
not
true.
standing on this side of a parabolic dune right now.
Right. Excellent job. Yeah.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right. We'll move on to the development report. Glenn? Oh, just do not rotate that to camera.
That's all right.
Maybe
You
Glenn should
Yes.
just come take my microphone.
Stay it
It's
right
a little
there.
laggy.
You know.
That's okay.
Yeah.
All right, Glenn.
Okay, so brief report. You can see that our gift count, I'm excited about, is up again this month. This year. And this continues a trend we're seeing that I think we're getting more and more contributions. Our donor base is growing, and it just signals an acceptance of the role of philanthropy within the park system. So that's really excellent. Continues a trend. And as I look at numbers up to date in March, we continue to have a very positive trend. The downside of that, though, is that with the more gifts you get, it does tend to suppress your average gift. And so you can see it was down a little bit from this time last year. But, small donors grew into big donors, and that's what we're excited about. Then our percent of annual revenue goal remains pretty steady from the years past, so that's good. The only real report that I have is that the Rotary Club Lake Overlook, which is being constructed out at Ottawa Sands, has been plans have been submitted, and we're in conversations with Rotary to, fulfill their pledge. So that's all good. Any questions that I can answer?
Anything for Glenn?
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. All right, I think we have one more staff report, and that is the strategic plan update. If there's anything we want to highlight on here?
Well, so we're making great progress in the So Aaron's been hard at work supporting all the various divisions and essentially trying to do a very similar, right, input process and develop mission, vision, and initiatives for each of the divisions, and then talk about staffing needs and the various projects, as well as some capital projects. So Aaron?
Yeah, I won't add anything except that I think we'll be reaching out soon to try to schedule a work session in May, separate from the Parks Commission is what we talked about. To kind of, we'll have a staff retreat as mentioned in April. So everybody will look at the progress so far and try to prioritize some of the capital items that would go into the Parks plan. And then you would, there would be a refined output for the Parks Commission. So the Parks Commission could concur or provide feedback on what we come up with so far.
So, and then all those will be incorporated into the Parks and Rec and Open Space Plan, that then goes through a whole public process as well. Will be approved by the Parks Commission and then goes on to the Board of Commissioners.
So that work session day, maybe we would talk about it at April Parks
Well, and
Commission
we'll,
meeting
I
to
just
try to
made a note,
schedule
we'll
it
send
or
out a
something?
doodle poll.
Oh,
maybe,
okay,
and,
gotcha.
Yep.
Thanks, Aaron. Any questions on the status there? A lot of work you guys are putting into this. It's appreciated. All right, moving on to the committee reports. We'll start with the executive committee. We met on March 10th. I went through the agenda, talked a little bit about staff report formatting that Jason already touched on. Talked about some potential future guest presenters at the Parks Commission meetings when we have a shorter agenda. Talked a little bit about the bylaw review and potential revision process, and finance and policy is kind of handling and spearheading that effort. And then I believe we just touched on the Ottawa Sands schedule that has already been mentioned with the April soft opening and potential for ribbon cutting in May also. So got a lot of things going on this spring. I think that's about it, in case anyone has any questions. All right, we will keep going with, we did not have a planning committee. That got canceled, this planning committee meeting this month. So we'll move to finance and policy, and that's Linda.
So you can see what was submitted. I think what I want to talk about is you can see that we're looking at 2026 through 2029 right now. So there's really nothing to report on 2025 as of yet. And Brandy and the staff and finance are working on finishing up the 2024, and who knows? I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It kind of depends on how they get numbers from other people. And so that will be coming probably soon. If you have any specific questions, feel free to send them to me or to Jason, but it's about projects and what's on the list and what's not on the list yet. And the staff is still working that. We did review the maximum millage request. We are required every year to ask for, during the millage season, to ask for the maximum millage that's already been issued. And that's what there'll be a motion. There may be a motion for that today. I didn't notice. I think the most time we spent was on the bylaws and the rules of procedures. We did that. We did bylaws in 2022 is the last time that we reviewed them. Corporate counsel reviewed them at the time. The county administrator reviewed them at the time. We've been going through them and just making tweaks. I mean, there isn't anything significant until we hear from Josh Berger's committee on bylaws, which might get talked about tomorrow or might not, or we don't really know where we are yet. So, but we are confident about being up first because we're very, very up to date on our things. Always things can be tweaked, but nothing substantial. We did talk about the item of expense camp refund policy. Apparently our software won't let us do what we wanted to do. That's another issue. I won't talk about it. I kind of feel that's their problem, not ours. But so Jason and staff and the operations people and Nick are working on how that might work. And then there was a lot of discussion about discounted or waiver for veterans. And I think we went decided sort of on the discounted, no, we're telling where we're going now, on the discounted process, sort of what we do for seniors, but that will be happening. There'll be something coming out. And there was a discussion about, I guess the Allendale Chamber of Commerce asked us for a a facility rate rental reduction fee. And we don't do that as a general rule for any group. So I think we're going to look at it and see how many people that actually might apply to if we did it and what that would do for the budget. So that's sort of what that was about. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or somebody here will.
Anything to add, Phil?
We talked about the veterans, that part, so yeah.
Yeah. I think we're gonna just go with the senior, same discount as the seniors get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an action item or on a motion.
And will depend on the Veterans Affairs Department to make sure they're veterans.
Great. Anyone else? Question for Linda? Comments? All right. So that takes us to the foundation update and Jane.
Yeah, Jason already mentioned that the foundation had its annual retreat this past Friday. And Jason from Crow facilitated that. It was a really good session. Glenn was there as well. All of the Parks Foundation board members were there except for our one member who lives out of town. So it was a really good showing, and it is the foundation talked through some goals, some perceived obstacles, some ideas about what to do to confront those obstacles. And the nice thing is that as the Parks Commission is implementing our strategic plan, the foundation then will follow up and develop a strategic plan to go in tandem with that. So there's just a real feeling of everyone working together, everybody being on the same page, even though the foundation is its own separate decision-making 501c3 organization. There definitely is the feeling that we're all supporting the same efforts. And so it was a great day, and Jason did a great job. So that was there was no business decisions or we didn't have a business meeting. It was just the retreat. So then the other thing is just, again, a reminder of some dates. The puzzle event took place on March 1. I'm not sure what the results of, I don't know how much money they raised. I know our team did not acquit itself in the manner that I had hoped.
Then
But-
show up next time.
No, I know. No, I'm kidding.
Completed a puzzle, so, right? With-
Cool.
Yes.
But you guys looked pretty cool. So, so we were represented, and thanks for doing that. And I think it was sold out, so I'm sure that the event did well. I believe April 26th is the Art for the Parks event at Hemlock Crossing. So the Lakeshore Visual Artists Collaborative or Cooperative is going to be there again with all of their beautiful artwork. If you purchase it, then 10% of that comes back to the foundation.
Parliament Pizza is the food truck.
What's that?
Parliament Pizza is the
Oh,
food truck.
Parliament
They're good.
Pizza is a food truck. I have had their pizza. They are good. So be there if you can. June 12 is the breakfast and lunch in the parks. June, whatever the week from that Saturday is the race.
21st.
21st, okay. So sign up or come out for that. The other thing is, I know some of us were at maybe we talked about this last time. I can't remember if our meeting was before or after the documentary premiere. And so if you were there, you saw it. It's absolutely fabulous. If you weren't there and you haven't seen it, it's on the Parks Foundation. Is it on our YouTube channel? Our Parks and Rec YouTube channel. watch it. Scott did a really, really nice job. And I stopped in and told him so the other day, but it's, you know, it's just a great thing to share with other people as well who might be wondering about how Ottawa Sands was developed, or just in general how that whole process works. It was really, really nice. So take a gander at that if you haven't seen it.
And thank you to all the people who participated, the video, who were the interviewees. Thank you to Kelly for your help getting it right, finalized, and yeah, there's a lot of work. So Scott did.
Yeah, everyone who was interviewed did a great job. So yeah, thanks to all of them. That's it.
All right, that's some good stuff. Anyone have questions for Jane? Comments? All right, we will keep rolling, and we are on to old business. And Erin, are you up with the grant status report that we're getting just for information here?
Yeah, if there's any questions, I'll.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, very complete. One quick question, not really a question, just maybe a plea for reassurance. You mentioned a little bit earlier that the funding that we get that involves federal dollars doesn't seem to be in jeopardy, or there's
At
no.
least on that one grant, that grant opportunity.
But several of the grants we currently have, and we're in the process of implementing, those do involve federal dollars.
Some, yeah, the Land and Water Conservation Fund is like for the day's restroom. I
Right.
don't know what that means. You know,
As
for
far as we know, none of those grants are vulnerable at this point.
we did have a hiccup with the coastal resiliency where it was paused for momentarily. But then it was resumed. Yeah, and long term, how that one works, that's definitely one that would be on the list with the executive orders because it includes a couple pain points on that one. The only thing I can say about land and water and is the National Park Service is the DNR told me they have had a lot of staff shakeups. So the people that are working on process those. So we have contracts that are pending for Bass River and for Upper Mac that could slow that down potentially. Don't know for sure, but that's one impact. Long term, land and water was expanded significantly in the previous Trump administration by a big bipartisan margin. It's not general tax funding, it's oil and gas revenues. So my guess is that that wouldn't go away long term, and it's not on the chopping block. But so I would feel confident in some way. It just will take longer to get it. Is probably what will happen. Maybe longer at the moment to get the reimbursements.
So at this point, we're not limiting our grant
We're
pool of potential grants.
not unless we hear otherwise. We don't necessarily. We're not doing a land and water this year. There's not a ton of federal grants we pursue. TAP would be another one that I know that there's been some directives from the Department of Transportation about other kind of non-motorized funding things that were in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and the IRA that might be going away, but I haven't heard specifically about TAP, the Transportation Alternatives Program. We'll just keep an eye on that. Our current TAP is almost fully reimbursed with the Stearns Connector, as far as I know. And then we are working one for the Allendale segment, so that we'll keep an eye on that.
Okay, thanks.
This one's a little indirect, but we were working with the Conservation District to treat the hemlocks that are infested with HWA at Rosamount, and that was covered through a landscape scale restoration grant, which is federal. And they had received the funds for that, but they haven't been able to execute the grant because it's federal. So, I mean, not directly us, but that does impact our work.
No, I've heard the Land Conservancy, I've talked to them, and they have several 319 grants that aren't getting reimbursed and work they've done. So there's a lot of our exposure on federal grants is a lot less than a lot of organizations. And where we're at with some of our grants just turned out, we just don't typically rely on them as much. But for other organizations, I know it's challenging.
And when we received the notice on the one that's now been released again, I took our most recent grant report and highlighted the federal ones and met with Gary, the interim county administrator, and just shared. So they had the information. Brandy, I'm sure, has access if they've talked about it. But I know, through the budgeting process, the county is trying to identify the different grants that could be impacted, as well as then staff that are tied to those. But
Yeah, there's other organizations been collecting information, like statewide organizations. Grand Haven Community Foundation just reached out with a survey asking about that, so.
Great, thanks. Any other questions for Aaron? All right, we will go on to the 2024 annual report. I think that's you, Jess.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do a couple things here. Jason, I assume you want to watch the video?
yep, I figured we could, and then answer any questions people have.
All
on the-
right, so.
So the board rules require in your report, so each division or department is assigned a month, and ours was moved up a little bit this year. So the kudos to Riley and Jessica for getting it pulled together, especially Riley on such a short turnaround. So.
Nice. Anything else you wanted to highlight? I pretty much said a lot.
Yep, in the annual reports in the packet as well. So those then are both up on our website now.
They're up on mine.
Yeah, shout out to Riley for work on this and the written report. It was phenomenal. So I love the symbols and the, visual aspect she put in there with it too. So that was really cool. Any questions for Jess or Jason on the? Oh yeah, Field, go ahead.
I noted and I'm thrilled about it, that there were like 4,000 kids from the schools in parks. Were most of them from Ottawa County, or were they from adjacent counties as well?
I think
Most of them are coming from in county. Yep.
Do you have an approximate percentage?
It's probably like 90-10 or 85-15. Yeah. Yep. We've got a partnership with Grand Rapids Public Schools. They bring out students to Lakeshore Parks to do a dune program, but otherwise I would say the vast majority of folks coming in are from our local.
I just,
Yeah. Good question. Thank you.
taxpayers are paying.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's the Parks for All program. So we're getting the kids, fourth graders in.
Yes,
And more.
that ran as a pilot. So we do still offer the curriculum, but we have curriculum-based programs from pre-K all the way to 12th grade. So, yep, lots of different grades. And we're working on, we should soon with our new rec our new rec software, it's a lot easier to track that data. It was extremely difficult to do that before. So hopefully we'll have a more robust data to share with you about how we're doing on that as we continue to grow.
Great. Anything else? All right, we'll keep going. And Jess, you're up again. This just happened to be our feature kind of information sharing this month. If you guys recall, I put out a call for ideas if there's anything when we have shorter agendas that you all like to hear more about that park staff tackles, make sure you let me know. We've got a couple in the cooker for future months, but anytime you guys think of something you'd like to hear more about, make sure you share your ideas. So Jess, with that, you're going to be giving us a little more information on interpretive signage.
Yeah. Yeah. I told you guys you've been hearing my voice a lot this meeting. So hopefully I'm not driving you too crazy. This was an hour presentation, 40-minute presentation that we've condensed into 10 minutes. So I might talk a little quick. You can always ask me to go back or ask questions if you have them. So just kind of starting out, interpretive signage, what does it say? What does it mean? Like, what is it? But more importantly, like, what is it not? So we have a ton of different signs in the parks. We have kiosk signs, we have rule signs, we have maps. We could go on. Poor Erin knows all about it, right? So interpretive signs are focused on helping visitors understand history, landscapes, resources, or things that we're doing within the park that we want to just share more about. They're meant to help visitors make a connection with that park and give it a little bit more meaning. So we'll go through a few examples through this presentation, maybe okay, come on. If my slides want to work, whoop, whoop. Okay. So talking a little bit about concept development, we're going to go through a few different points here. So site, story, audience, and maintenance. Those are kind of some key things we'll focus on. This was just a really interesting example that we used. Ottawa Sands was one of our bigger interpretive sign projects that we did, and we worked really hard to make sure that folks got the full story. So, if you start here, there's a really big map that you'll see that has highlights about kind of each project that we did, and then we created this little aerial map here to tell folks where the different stories were along the trail. So this is just a little snippet. So first of all, choosing a site. You have to ask a few questions. Is there a story or significant feature here, or are we doing work that is worth sharing? I use the deer exposure example because the sign at Hemlock Crossing for a long time was really falling apart, and we would get people that would come in and be like, what's the fence in the woods? They were really confused, right? So instead of kind of telling people what was going on, we were just kind of freaking them out a little bit. So what's happening in that space? Is it safe? We don't probably want to send folks to the bottom of a ravine at Grand Ravine. At Grand Ravines, right? It'd be cool, but we don't want folks slipping and falling and rolling into a ravine and breaking their ankle or something like that, Is it intrusive? Another question that we ask, say we're going to interpret a beautiful stand of Virginia bluebells, we probably don't want to put our sign right in the middle of that stand so people are trampling over it, right? So we don't want to be intrusive to the ecosystems that we're talking about. Want to make sure we're telling a story in a compelling way. Why does it matter? Like, why does somebody care that they're looking at this space? So this is a sign that's out at Grand Ravines where you're looking at a restored meadow, and we talk about those grassland ecosystems. What did that maybe look like in pre-settlement? What was this land before? Why does this ecosystem matter? That's kind of one of sort of 5 stories that are out there. It's worth telling too, I might cover this later, but interpretive signage is a visual medium. So you want to take great care to think about what sort of graphics and photos that you're using. And we do dig into that a little bit more as we go. I learned this from Chip Frankie, actually, who came in to help. He was played a consultant role for these Grand Ravines interpretive signs, 3:33. So you've got about 3 seconds to grab someone's attention. They've got about 30 seconds to engage. And then maybe if you've caught their attention and they engage, they'll probably read your sign for about 3 minutes. So, you can't have too many words on there because folks just won't read them all. And we talk a little bit about this, but as we go through these signs, it's worth looking at. You'll notice there's, different levels of text size, right? So we want to try to make sure if somebody's only going to spend 30 seconds, like what is the most important thing we want them to walk away with on this sign? We really want them to read all the little stuff, but got to prioritize. So here, that's where we kind of dig into this. So the elements, so text, images, and graphics. So again, here is a sign about the shoreline work that we did at Ottawa Sands, that inland lake. I feel bad it's so small for you guys because there's a lot of really good information on this sign. So again, thinking about that text, what do we want people to know right away, right off the bat? Make sure we're drawing their eyes to that headline, a subhead, and then maybe some other important information. We talk about the littoral zone. Before we did Ottawa Sands, who knew what that was? Right? Okay. That's not, if you went to Meyer and polled like 20 people, like maybe one person would know what that is. We'll talk about this a little bit more. We started adding, when I joined the team, since I don't have an NRM background, I feel very lucky that Riley does, because we don't have to go through some of the pain that I went through. But I get talking to my science friends. I'm like, we gotta tell people what that means. But we don't want to not use the correct terminology, right? So it's this education. We're using the correct terminology that maybe is complex, but we're giving the definition right there so folks can kind of know what we're talking about. Thinking about graphics a little bit, you'll see on this sign, there's kind of a combination of imagery and graphics that were created. It's nice to have a combination of both. This one is particularly fun because we're talking about the history of this lake, and we've got some aerial imagery from 1962 to what's there currently. So you can see some change over time. There's some before and afters from our work. And then Riley actually worked on illustrating the littoral zone, making it a little bit easier to digest because, you know, like it's illustrated, right? It's kind of like a cartoon. It's easier to understand graphically sometimes. So thinking about audience. So first of all, are there visitors in the area, right? Are people going to see this? That's another, like, do we put the sign about the ravines down at the bottom of the ravine? Probably not, right? Because people aren't walking by that spot. So you want to try to make sure that people are going to see all of this work that you're putting into these signs. And then we also talk a lot about accessibility. So the size of the sign, the angle in which it sits. So if somebody has a mobility device, if they're in a wheelchair, is it too high for them to see? There's a lot of data out there that helps us make those choices, a lot of best practices. And I think we're in a good place. Like we've kind of developed for our kiosk signs, those are always 30 by 36. For our interpretive signs, they're probably either 24 by 36 or 18 by 24. So we kind of have this is about what size type we need so folks can read it. Kurt's knows what angle it has to be set up at. So, again, it's that kind of ADA accessibility level. And then another thing that we talk a lot about with our science friends is reading level. So when you're creating signage for the general public, generally you want it to be at a reading level between 3rd and 6th grade. So it's easily digestible by anyone who visits. So that can be sometimes the most challenging thing is taking these really complex topics and breaking them down in a way that's manageable. That also tends to be my role, again, as the person without the NRM background. I'm like, okay, explain it to me like I am my 7-year-old Elias, right? So I can understand what's going on. And then again, also that is why that glossary is incorporated sometimes. Oh man, it's not liking me clicking through here. This is kind of a cool preview. So in thinking about accessibility, we also think about language. We've talked a lot about translating signage in parks, and a lot of times what happens is we translate signs like rule signs and like, hey, don't forget to pay us, right? And that's not always, that's like useful, but not always super welcoming. So we've talked a lot in community engagement about how can we provide our interpretive signage and tell these stories in other languages. So Ottawa Sands is kind of an interesting example. As we were working on these signs, we had a teacher from Jenison Public Schools contact us. She is a Spanish speaker, and she offers a very small group of kids in the high school a chance to do an internship with her where they're translating material for the community free of charge. She checks everything to make sure it's correct, which is good because I would not be a great check on that. So we had her student translate all of the signs the interpretive signs that you see out of Ottawa Sands. And we're working on, all right, how are we going to get these signs out there? Do they sit side by side? How does that look? That presents some challenges in and of itself. So we're going to kind of keep working through how we do this well. Another thing we've talked about is, can we do a QR code on a sign where folks can go and then choose their language from a dropdown like they do on our website, with the understanding, right, this is just one language that we've translated to, and there's multiple spoken within the county. So that is just something that we've been chewing on and we're working on improving. And I'm excited to get these out there. So this is the family of signs that are out at Ottawa Sands. We really do, when we think about designing, we really truly think about them as a family. So they all go together. The main theme is this reviving Ottawa Sands, from surviving to thriving. Each one of them tells a story within that large story. And they all they have similar elements, right? We're using the same font on each sign. We're using the same typeface sizing, the same colors. That's got a similar header and footer. So they look like they go together.
Mhm. Mhm.
Same thing here. This is the family of signs out at Grand Ravines that I talked a little bit about before. So again, they just have some similarities. So as you're walking, you understand that they are meant to go together. Also, it just looks nicer. And then lastly, how many people does it take to do this? So it takes a lot of people, actually. Grand Ravines, we had 5 content creators. I was the designer on that project, and Chip was a paid consultant who worked with us. For Ottawa Sands, we also had 5 content creators, and Riley, who was the designer on those. And, we sat in a room and haggled over whose stories were whose, and then we wrote it and we rewrote it and worked together to find graphics. So it takes a significant amount of time and planning and editing. Thank you to all of our editors out there who make sure we don't spell things in silly ways. And then last but not least, that's just what it takes to develop it electronically, right? That does not cover what happens to get it out in the parks, right? So once it's developed and printed, we've got a plotter in the office over at Fillmore, so it gets printed in-house on vinyl, and then we send it over to operations staff. They mount the sign onto a frame. They, I believe, sometimes do like add a UV coating on top, because you'll see signage where they don't have that, and it gets faded real fast. They get that attached to a post. They probably have to dig a big hole, and they get it outside and make sure that it stays looking nice. Checking in on it regularly. Our park monitors help with that too. Is it getting eaten by a critter friend? Did someone steal it? That happens sometimes. Did the sun fade it? How is it looking? Because again, keeping those things fresh and looking nice is all of our jobs, and really reflects on how much care we take in that park space. So I know I went through that kind of fast. So if anybody has any questions or wants to see anything else, let me know.
That's cool. I have a real quick question, or maybe something you can just address. So there's so much scientific and historical and cultural information on these signs. Can you give us a sense of the scope, I guess, of the source material for a lot of that information? Like, you don't just walk around knowing all that stuff. So it comes from somewhere, right? And
Right.
probably a lot of places. But
Mhm.
what kind of source materials do your content creators use?
That's a good question, and it kind of depends on the topic, right? So if it's a park sign, we do have some interpretive information. There is historical records that we've been working on some of those projects, right, for 20 or 30 years. Sometimes you've got to really look back. I know Riley went through aerial imagery in GIS to look at, well, what did this lake that wasn't a lake before look like? How far back does that data go? And some of it is just why you have so many content creators in the room, right? So if we're going to do a sign about native landscaping, we want to make sure Neely's there and Tyler's there, as that's their specialty. So it depends. It can be, man, you can go really far back. Actually, one of my first projects when I joined the team in 2015 was doing the sign out at Hager Park about the family who owned the property before. And I went out to Grand Rapids Public Library and went through like microfiche trying to find information and dig it up just about that park and the family who owned it before, and just tried to do that topic justice. So yeah, there's we can go. We have a lot of researchers that really enjoy that on the team. So then the other thing you have to think about is what's the balance, right? Like,
So
how
I'll
much
add
time do we have?
one quick thing there on the Grand River Greenway. At least in 1998, we had a giant study done on the cultural and natural and historical inventory. So that's a resource. It's packed with information. We did share that with the interpretive plan consultant So and then, yeah, going forward for the greenways, we're doing our first interpretive plan for the Grand River Greenway right now. So that will help inform at least overall themes, and maybe identify some other sources, and we'll do them hopefully for all the greenways.
Great, thanks, Jess. Any questions? Other questions or comments?
I have a general comment. Historically, this is fascinating. Many of you probably don't know this. The Detroit, Grand Haven, and Milwaukee Railroad ran across that property. And it went to the foot of Dewey Hill, this was back in the old days when they would take the freight off the freight cars, load it on a ship, and take it across the lake. It would be cool if we could figure out where that right of way went and work with the Grand Haven Historical Commissions. A guy named Chad Fisk is the chairman of it, and get a sign about that, because it was and the reason that the railroad had to move across the river to it's now part of the museum in Grand Haven, the train station that exists, is because the sand was coming down and they just could no longer prevent it. It's a very interesting historic thing, at least for the Grand Haven community.
Thank you. I'm making a note of that.
It seems pretty doable. There's some old plat maps at Loudet. And
I've seen
things.
paintings or drawings that
I
have
mean,
it.
and yeah.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. We will keep going on with the item 11B, and that's the 2026 through 2029 capital improvement projects and schedule. This is just for information, but was there anything you wanted to highlight on here? This was reviewed by Finance and Policy. Actually, the next 4 items on new business went before the Finance and Policy Committee, but Jason, anything to
So this
highlight
is
on here?
preliminary schedule. So some of them are directly out of our Parks and Recreation plan, and then we go out a couple other years. So those, the future years will be incorporated into our Parks and Recreation plan, the upcoming one. So we still have to do some work on specifically things that are CMP projects or capital maintenance projects. So this won't be finalized until the entire budget, incorporating our operating budget as well, will be finalized. But if anybody had any questions, happy to answer them.
It's very tiny print. Feel free to read it. And if you have questions, you can always send it to Finance and Policy and Jason, and we can
Yep.
get back to you.
Good. All right, we'll keep rolling then on to item 11C, which is approving the maximum millage request. Oh, here we go. All right, we have a suggested motion. Again, this has been before Finance and Policy to approve and recommend that the Board of Commissioners levy the maximum amount allowed for the Ottawa County Parks and Open Space millage. If anyone would like to make that suggested motion.
I'll make it.
All right, thanks, Linda.
Support.
Thank you, Jane. All right, question, or Linda, you got one?
So just as a reminder, this is not new money. This is just us accessing the maximum that we can from the current millage. So it's not a new millage, it's money that we already have.
Okay.
What is the millage rate with Headley, it's probably gone down a little bit?
It's
The
at,
0.33.
it is 3.3, okay.
It's 0.33, or is it 0.33?
It's
with a
0.33. We would
reduction?
have to, I don't know if anybody knows off the top what the rollback is.
We'll have a new, somewhere around, but the, apportionment's not out yet.
So we don't know.
It's a little less than 3.33 because
Which is why we're not asking for a specific number, because we don't have it yet. And so when we have it, we'll go with that maximum number.
just wondered.
Yep, good question, though.
The other thing, I noticed that we skipped a motion on 10B.
Oh, well, I thought that was that just for information only?
Yes.
Well, we did have suggest to accept it.
Oh, okay, sorry. We gotta back up there. Okay, so we are looking for a motion to accept the capital improvement projects. Okay,
It's the annual
It's
report.
the annual report.
It's funny for us to accept it since it's already
11B.
been submitted.
I don't see.
I don't have a problem doing that, but because we got bumped up 2 months before we thought we were going to get bumped up.
Oh, 10B. I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
why I put accept and
sorry.
not
My
approve.
bad. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. You are correct. Thank you, Field.
And I would move that we accept the 2024 annual report as presented.
Thank you, Field, for catching that. I was going full bore. Do we have support? All right. Oh, Joe Beach. Thank you. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right. Report is accepted. Thank you very much for calling that out.
Now we're back to the motion on the table.
11C.
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 All right. And we have support and, or motion and support. All right. Was there any further comments on the maximum millage request? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right. Motion carries. And now we are moving to 11D, which is the revised item at Explorers Camp rental conditions of use. We have a suggested motion there if anyone would care to make that or something similar.
So move.
All right, thanks, Jane. Thanks, Lucas. Okay, Jason, did you want to give just a quick summary on what we're talking about here?
Sure. The real meat of it. There we go. The real meat of this is the cancellation policy that we were discussing, and so as Linda mentioned, there are some things that we were unable to get programmed into RecTrack, so this policy had to be rewritten. And as you'll see, part of it requires a written request to OC Parks to do certain cancellations that would require partial refunds. But the meat of it is really, if you cancel your reservation more than 30 days out for your house or yurt or tree house, I coined a new phrase, the yurt house, you'd get everything back minus 10% cancellation fee, which would cover our credit card processing fees for the in and out. And then if you cancel it less than 30 days, you would not get a refund. For tent sites, we did a little more lenient where you can go up to 10 days, between 10 and 30 days, and get a 50% refund. And then it also outlays some of the exceptions or lack of exceptions, and also the rescheduling fee. If you just, I was going to do June 4th through 5th, but now I want to do August 4th through 5th, and there's just a $20 rescheduling fee.
Questions?
Have we compared these cancellation policies with other organizations that are doing similar things?
Yeah, we've compared them with other public agencies. We've compared them with other like vacation rentals, hotels, and campgrounds, and a whole bunch of different ones. So this would be probably for public agencies right about average, or maybe I'd say right about average. For like comparing it to vacation rentals or Airbnbs or things like that, it's probably a little more strict than they would have, but it does fall kind of in the range.
Does the computer system, the software and so forth, have the opportunity to have like a wait list for facilities? And if someone were to cancel and there were a wait list, would there then be able to refund the money, more money to the original renter?
That's an interesting question. We asked that same question, but not in the same way you asked it. So now
Well, I did it in Aramaic.
we did ask that question, and we got it answered, and the answer we had was no, but not the way you asked it. The way we asked it was, if it were rebooked by somebody else, could we go back and not do that with the original, or give them a more lenient, or most, if not all, of their money back. And the reason we couldn't do that was because once we refund somebody any of their money, we don't save credit card information or anything like that. So going back and refunding them more would not be possible. But the way you asked it is intriguing, because if we were to do a wait list, which might be possible, and I don't know, we could do it all as one transaction perhaps and make it work. So I will ask that question.
I think it's worth asking. I mean, that seems like a pretty strict policy. If somebody cancels on the 5th of July for, 10 days later, guess what? You're going to be able to rent that property, or that yurt.
Yeah.
I just think we need to be fair. We're not,
So there were several facilities that had similar type of outfitted camping, or other people might call it glamping, tree houses in your facilities that were very similar, that had that 30-day kind of hard refund window. So, yeah.
Yeah, we chewed on this quite a bit on finance and policy, and one of the things we talked about too is that, this is the very first season, and we can take a look at like those variables, because it's a big question mark. If someone does cancel, will there be someone waiting in the wings? I mean, it's so fabulous, you would think yes, but we don't know. And so after this first year too, we can adjust if we need to, because that's a real good
It'd be
question.
great if they have a wait list, so we
Yeah.
can, and Nick's already has a schedule in with Vermont Systems to.
And I know there are some, online sites I use, like shopping sites, if you're interested in something, but it's in somebody else's cart. If they drop it out of their cart, then you get a notification right away and you can buy it. So it's sort of that same technology, I would think. That'd be
And I
nice
think the
if
one,
we could do that.
and I think the one, we kind of are always struggle. We're so used to technology and our phones, and even Microsoft's pretty handy, but our recreation software isn't quite as nimble. So we can definitely see, it would be great if they could have a wait list, just because we know, right? We could
I
let
just
people
think
know.
I just think it'd be,
yeah.
it's, part of this is PR, folks.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so on a different scale, I've had experience where we did it manually. We did that manually, and then we put it on the customer, to call after the date had passed to check. And we could evaluate that. It was pretty time consuming for staff to try to manage that. So, but if we can automate it, that would be.
I think it's something worth seriously looking at. I don't know if other people agree with me or not.
So I was you all who think I'm like the strictly by the rules, I think this is terribly inconsiderate if somebody has a true emergency. And I know somebody told me they thought it was rude if we asked for a death certificate. If you have spent 10 days of whatever this is going to cost, and that's probably pretty close to $3,000 and some, right?
Could be.
It could be. I don't think anybody would be concerned if you ask them for proof of death or the obituary or whatever, because I just think there are certain things that happen in life that we don't plan for. If this is somebody who just says, my kid's softball team made it a lot further than I thought, we can't come, sorry. But my husband died, I'm not bringing the kids out, and maybe they will, maybe they would want to. I just think there isn't a way for somebody who has a true emergency. And we all know that those happen. They have all happened to us at some point. Maybe you get a health diagnosis that you had no idea you were going to get. All sorts of things. And I think it makes us look terribly uncaring at the county level, where we're taking taxpayers' money to do this in the first place.
Well, and that was a debate we also had in our committee meeting, and
Yes, it
my
is.
response to that, and I think it's covered it's very clear, is we recommend buying travel insurance, which if you book on any other site, if you book a hotel or an airline ticket or a resort, which that's who we're competing with this campground, that is the recommendation. And
But
so
Jane,
there is an there is a remedy for that, but it's on the consumers.
But if you're-
It's a risk the consumer takes, not the county.
If you're a county resident, you paid for this. Some part of this you paid for. In your millage dollars, you paid for.
The campground should be self-sustaining.
The
so.
campground is
It
a
should be.
revenue generating,
We hope.
entity that pays for itself.
We hope.
Well, the way our business plan is laid
And
out,
it
it
was,
does.
you know,
if we
most of
get
the-
60% occupancy, and we will have 60% occupancy.
Okay.
I can guarantee, well, I can't guarantee that, but
We're
it
optimistic.
can guarantee
So
that.
I think that.
Think about adding something though where you could override or.
So we
Nick could
can, in
override?
the way we have, I think in our facility, we could add, an asterisk, right, for exceptions, or we don't even need to have it in the policy, but if somebody writes it in, at least in, we don't have to advertise it, but if somebody, writes in, I'm happy to take the responsibility to make those determinations and just ask for, right, the doctor's note or, so.
Because when I had cancer, the best I could get from the airline is a voucher. They wouldn't do a refund.
Really?
Yeah.
Of course,
When
no.
I got
It's an
COVID, when I
airline.
got COVID, the airline, I had to cancel a trip and the airline refunded me 100%.
And I think some places, and that's the, we've developed a business plan to try to operate this as much like a business as possible. And, some places, probably the smaller, right, are more compassionate and then some corporate or maybe a little bit less flexible, but it might be vice versa, I guess. So,
Chime in, running campgrounds, to Jason's point, we had a very strict policy, but like Jason kind of mentioned, there was those requests, like terrible things could have happened to somebody's family or themselves. And essentially the Parks Commission said, okay, we're gonna designate the Parks Director to make that call. If somebody said, hey, this happened,
Right.
is there anything you can do for me? And internally, severe illness, injury, and death, they left up to me as the Parks Director to make that call. So that could be a way to do that as well. So that's not so harsh, but at the same time, the policy is the policy, but giving Jason
Right.
or whoever on the
Yeah.
commission that authority to make those decisions.
Yeah. The really interesting thing about this debate is Linda, Navy veteran, Department of Defense,
Black and
rules.
white.
Rules is arguing her part, and the retired social worker's like, no, hell no. Travel insurance. So we have interesting debates.
It is.
Yeah.
I just, maybe there are times of the year that you allow it, for example, in the summer, because you're going to sell it. If you have a wait list, you're going to be able to do it. But I just think the idea of double dipping on people that are customers or potential customers, I don't like it.
So we really do need to finalize this, or at least program it. So I think as far as the wait list, we can staff investigate that and provide an update at the next finance meeting, and we can work through that if that would.
If you all disagree with me on this, say so. But I just think we are.
No, I
Times
think.
of the year, like the middle of January, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But from, May 1st to.
Well, and I think that the goal, right? The goal is that it's being used,
Yeah.
and that's the goal. So, double dipping isn't necessarily the goal. It's just trying to, if it's booked and then we lose an opportunity to have, it'll be all about the wait list and whether or not we can fill those. So, if we can automate that, I think that's by all means reasonable. So.
And I do think that there will be times when somebody books it a year out, cancels it 30 days out, gets their 90% refund, and then it doesn't get booked. And we're out that then. And then there'll be other times where that happens and they get no refund, and then we rebook it and you say it's double dipped. So I think in the end, that all just equals out with having this across the board. It's 30 days. There's a line in the sand. it's one way or the other.
I was thinking about concert tickets. Like if you buy a non-refundable concert ticket, you can, or a ball game or something, you can scalp them like on a website or something like that. I don't know if we'd have like the ability to scalp.
We did
your-
say
your
that
tent
the
somewhere somehow.
we won't have a transfer that I know of. I don't think there's a way to officially transfer them. But if you were to want to have another family member or a close friend use your nights, they would just be logging in with your email, and you would be the one responsible for any damage they did. So you wouldn't want to do that on a scalping website and be responsible for somebody you don't know.
It seems
But-
like a good way to go.
But you really could, let your next door neighbor use your rental because, you aren't able to make it.
And that's what happens majority of the time in campgrounds when you get that non-refundable time frame like holidays. We always would tell people, hey, it's not refundable, but if you have a friend or family member would like to use that, and I'd say 9 times out of 10, that's what happens. What happens monetarily behind the scenes is up to them, right? But that's something that's pretty typical that happens.
So maybe what we'd be looking for is to pass the motion so we can get up and functional today, but.
I think, and then the
circle
question
back.
was there interest in amending it to authorize the director to approve?
Right, because
or
we did talk
exceptions.
about that at finance and
Yeah,
policy, and I
yeah.
think everybody
Exceptions.
was on board with
Yeah.
that too, so,
There are
yes.
extenuating circumstances. Yeah.
So maybe you somebody could update the motion to add that, and then
Made this motion.
Yeah, did anyone make the motion yet?
I did not make this one.
I don't think so.
Oh, wait, sorry, Jane. Jane, you
Okay.
did and Lucas seconded it.
Don't you remember?
There we
long time
go.
ago.
So do you want to
I'm
make
fine with
hour
amending
ago,
it
yeah.
to include the provision that the director will have discretion, under extenuating circumstances to determine the amount, if any, of a refund.
I'll second that.
Would you also consider adding that Nick or whoever, Jason, look at the concept of a wait list?
Yes. Well, I don't know. Does that need to be in the
I
motion?
think we'll do
It's
that
up to you.
regardless.
We'll do that.
Yeah, let's circle back on
Yeah.
that though next
So
month.
can I,
I think finance and policy will want to be looking at this,
Yeah.
after 6 months of operation.
Well, so we'll have monthly reports
Yeah.
starting next month from Nick. That will include our facility use and
so this will fall under Nick at some point, right?
Yep.
Okay.
It's just transitioning,
Right,
right?
okay.
Jason worked on this, and so moving forward, it'll be Nick.
Congratulations.
Good? All right,
I
so,
seconded that.
okay,
Yes.
awesome,
Second nature.
awesome. So we may wordsmith it, but it would be something to the extent of approve the item explores camp rental conditions of use, including a provision giving the director discretion to allow no penalty cancellations. Or,
Minimal penalties,
Yeah.
because they're always going to get the 10% because of the credit card.
The credit card issue.
allow minimal.
Exceptions to it would be exceptions. to the-
Exceptions to the cancellation policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Are we all good? Okay. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right. Motion carries. And one more quick one, because we got some closed session things to go over. The motor vehicle permit policy update that adds the veterans discount. We have a suggested motion there, if anyone would like to make that or something similar.
I'll make that motion.
All right. Thanks, Phil.
And
Second.
Ooh. Who's- All right. Bruce, we'll give it to you.
Okay.
All right. Okay, questions, comments?
And let the
Did you
veteran
wanna?
do it.
Yeah, right. How about you take the
No,
discussion?
That's all right. That's okay. No, I think Jason explained it pretty well, and Jason Shamlin, the Veterans Affairs Office, has come to us with a request for some sort of a discount for veterans. They're going to assume the responsibility of verifying that somebody is in fact a veteran, and they get the discount.
I didn't quite hear sorry, but
Ian,
that's all right.
go ahead.
No, I didn't quite hear all of what you said.
Sorry,
there.
I think it's
No,
pretty-
I think it's worth noting, this is, they did ask for it to be waived. This would apply directly towards residents who are veterans. So through the committee, it was discussed to do a discount as a compromise.
The veteran on the committee didn't think free was okay. I thought they should have to pony up at least the minimum.
Questions, comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, motion carries. Okay, public comments. We move to our second public comment. Is there anyone online? If you are online and would like to make public comment, please submit it in writing to the email address noted in the YouTube video description. And there is no one in our audience, so we'll just keep rolling with Commissioner's prerogative. And we'll start over there. Paul, anything?
Nothing here.
Okay, Bruce?
Nothing.
All right, Lucas?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, Jane?
Nothing.
Linda? Martin?
Nothing bad.
Phil?
All good.
Joe?
Water Quality Forum on Friday.
Yeah,
Up to 330 people signed up, so I think we'll get to 350, maybe 400, it's fine, but
Are
it'll
you
be
in
a
the
great time.
main conference room here?
No, Pinnacle Center.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. I was like, how are you gonna do that? Awesome.
Pinnacle Center.
Good. Field?
I have a suggestion. I don't know if it's appropriate for us to do, but there is a lot of pressure in Washington right now on maintaining the restoration of the Great Lakes funding. And I am wondering if it makes some sense for somebody to draft a resolution, we can't do it right now, for our next meeting to Congressman Huizenga and Congresswoman Skolton to show that we, as a Parks Commission, are strongly in favor of the continuing the funding for the restoration of it and improvements of the Great Lakes. And I just would ask if that's something that is, you all feel we should do, and if it could be done at our next meeting.
Go ahead.
I'm not opposed, but I think the Board of Commissioners would have to approve that from us.
So what we've done before in the past is the Parks Commission could do a resolution on their own. I'll touch base and make sure there wouldn't be any red flags with the county administrator, or, connect with Phil and the board chair. And then we could make a suggestion or request that the Board of Commissioners consider it also. But I think that, we'll touch base internally and make sure there aren't any red flags. And then,
That's fine.
yeah.
I just think this is an important issue for
No,
us.
I think that's great.
Absolutely.
Finance the policy or planning?
I don't know. Is there any preference?
I mean, heck, if it's ready, you can go to both, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, I'm working on the planning agenda this month.
Okay. Yeah, I put it on planning and finance and policy, both. Once Jason gives you the okay, like you want
Yeah.
to look at.
No,
a
I
couple
think,
of
and I
things,
don't
Jason.
think there would be an issue. I think if it's just right, supporting it and retaining, strongly supporting it, retaining it. No, and it.
No,
and,
that is phenomenal.
and we've had, our representatives and.
I've always been big supporters. of
Yeah.
it.
Right.
So I
Right.
think that I'd be surprised if they aren't already
Oh.
advocating. So it'd help them to have
I
resident
think
support.
it helps. Another just quick thing, at my meeting that I was at, and I will probably always be late to this one because of it, a fellow by the name of John Morrison from the West Michigan Trails Organization
We know, John.
attended, and I just want to be sure we have a relationship with him.
We have a pretty very tight relationship.
Excellent.
Aaron might actually be the acting president for that organization. Most recent, yeah,
Congratulations, Aaron.
yes.
Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. One other thing, if you guys didn't see it, Ottawa County has a podcast. Jessica, you did not put that in your report, but Jessica and Riley were guests on, what is it, Ottawa Out Loud, I think it's called. So they were guests.
That would be in my March report.
Yeah, all right. There we go.
Where do you go find it?
It is on the county's YouTube page.
Okay.
So, yep, Riley and I were on and we had a lot of fun.
It's on
Yes.
there, and Facebook posted up from Ottawa County too.
Yep.
So good deal, good deal. All right, so we need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
All right, thanks, Linda.
Support?
Thanks, Joe. All right, so we will go ahead and go into closed session with roll call. Yep. And close down our public meeting.
Bush,
Yes.
Greenlee,
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Hill,
He's leaving.
leaving. Kyers,
Yes.
Longstreet,
Yes.
McCaffrey,
Yes.
Reichart,
Yes.
Rice,
Yes.
and Sachs.
Yes.